Okay.
So don't be scared. I'm not going to put this on the internet.
Yeah, and your video is not working right now, Jer.
Okay. Hang on, my brother.
Right now, you're stuck.
Oh.
Yes.
Back in action.
No.
Kind of. You're a little pixelated there. You're a little Sega Genesis Neo Geo.
Stuck. He took the blue pill.
Do y'all remember do y'all remember the video games that they used to have at Pizza Hut that didn't work ever?
What? Pizza Hut?
We weren't allowed in those
a little video game arcade in our local Pizza Hut that our parents, when you'd go there to hand in your book reports, you'd get your book it ticket, and your parents would take you to get a personal pan pizza. And in the lobby of our family Pizza Hut, they had a fucking claw machine. They had you could play Donkey Kong, you could play Excite Bike. Like, it was serious.
Excite Bike. Man,
I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm kind of good at the crane game. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, really?
I've also been known. I have a very stellar reputation for being very good at the claw game too.
Oh my gosh! But hang on, I gotta reintroduce you. So, Derek, I'm
Yes.
Ernie. This is my brother. I'm not. What did I say? I'm Ernie. He's Ernie. I'm Jeremy.
Yeah.
We switched names tonight.
Jeremy is on top and Ernie is on the bottom.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah. Okay.
Usually how it goes.
Red hat. Ernie has the black hat.
There we go. Man, you sing for a really cool band.
I agree. Thanks for saying so too.
Yeah. Just so you know, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been really nice talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me too.
Man.
I just got done going through all my cassette tapes. If I showed you a 360 of my room right here, I have about 500 cassette tapes on my bed that I've been collecting for the last, so many years, of doubles and triples of albums that I love.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm finally going to list them all on Discogs, and I'm going to buy myself a nice motorcycle with that money.
Oh, really? What kind of bike you want to get?
No, I think I just want to get like a fancy moped that has a battery on it.
There you go.
I want to get one of those solar-powered mopeds that goes, I don't need to go anything above like 45 miles an hour just to putt around town on,
If you get a nice big panel, you can put it on top of your helmet, and then
they have them. They have them now.
No, they don't.
I saw there's a company in Japan that makes wireless battery chargers. So they're attached to your top fenders, and while your bike's sitting there chained up, they're collecting sun for you. And
no way.
Getting that vitamin D, bro.
Yeah, you can just be on the bike forever because they're charging even while the bike's in motion, almost like I understand like an alternator to be.
Nighttime does show up eventually, so yeah.
We're living in the future, y'all.
We are in the future. My God. I had a moped before it was cool, I think. Like before
I had a moped while they were cool, and I liked it. I liked it pretty good. Before we moved, I traded my moped in. There was a punk kid that lived in the neighborhood that was an electrician, and he wanted to buy my moped from me. And I said that if he put out exterior lights and an electrical panel on the front and back porch, that I'd trade straight up for it. So we did like a gentleman's agreement, and we shook hands. And he came, he ran electrical wire on my front and back porch, and I traded him the moped with the license and the plate and everything. Square deal.
What brand of moped was it?
I had two. I had a Batavis, which was it's from Holland.
Wow.
And then I also had a Japanese model as well. I can't remember the name of it, but I also had, my brother had an Italian one too that we had for a couple summers.
What
the
was
thing about us is we're not really good at like fixing anything. So once it got to a point where like, just a regular old fashioned dummy could fix it, we would just get rid of the bike. So, I'm not as handy as I think I am inside my mind.
Any chance the Italian one was a Tomos?
It was not a Tomos. No.
I had a Tomos. Remember, Ernie? Remember that blue thing I had?
I remember passing you on the coming up Sean's Hill with that thing.
Yeah, it didn't go too quick, and it's not like a little town we live in. Like there's a highway like right there. Yeah,
They're really fun. I mean, they're really fun if you like to tinker, and like even if you don't like to tinker, you can get about if you get a good tune-up, you could run it for about a good 3 years before you have to start tinkering with it again.
Yeah, that's about right. I think I had it for 2 years, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it won't start anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna go get a car because I'm 16 now and not a weirdo. So.
Well, I was in my late 30s when I was riding around in my moped, so we're not no judgment passed for you or me.
I think it was more me because like moped, I was the only moped on the road. Now I feel like it's more of like a cool thing around this area. Like before, like I was like the only guy. Like I was like they would say, "Hey, did you see that guy in the moped last week?" Yeah, it was one little fat kid with a giant blue motocross helmet. I almost killed him.
I would wear helmets that I'm not supposed to wear too. Like you're supposed to have a motorcycle helmet on. Yeah. But for like the first 2 years, I just wore like my bicycle helmet. I looked super badass. I took zip ties and I zip tied different license plates onto the front of it so that it looked like a shield. I kind of looked like a Mad Max type of a situation. I thought it was super cool.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
I hope one day I can see a photo of that. That'd be pretty.
I'll send you one after here. I got a couple of them. Oh yeah.
I don't even. Oh my god, my man. So we're obviously I want to ask you. So how everything kind of started, how you got into music and stuff after we're talking about mopeds. But so where did you grow up?
I lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for about the first 38 years of my life, and then for the last 6 months, 6 months ago, my partner and we moved to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and it's the first time I ever moved away from home, and it's kind of I did for college, but I knew that I was going to come home, and I don't think that really counts. But it's my first time like on my own, like leaving, moving away from home.
Wow.
So I rode a motorcycle through Pennsylvania, the hills there through the highway on the way to Gettysburg. And that was beautiful. Just beautiful.
Even if you don't believe in ghosts, if you go to that Gettysburg Cemetery, you'll believe in ghosts real fucking quick. It's spooky.
Yeah, we rode through there early in the morning because I wanted to. I would never ride my motorcycle without a helmet, but I wanted to go through the park without my helmet on because I assumed right in the morning would have been nice, and not a whole lot of people there, so I'm not having to dodge traffic. So we rode through there with some fog going through, with my helmet off. Ugh. And it was eerie. Like going I'm like, we can go faster now. I'd like to get through this.
Yeah, I mean. I don't know what the number is, but it's like hundreds of thousands of people died on one day in this very small little field. And it's just, it's wild. It's wild to think about all that, there has to be another dimension, and those things are floating around in space, like with unfinished business, like Beetlejuice kind of just, I totally believe in that. I don't know.
Did you have like an experience there? Like, do you ever walk through there and you're like, yo?
No, I haven't. I haven't there, but I have felt certain things not like an extra being or anything like that, but more than just like I ate some mushrooms and I'm seeing stuff. Like it's, I think, you feel a certain way. When I was in Salem, Massachusetts, my brother and I went to go take photos by the tree where they hung all the witches.
Yeah.
And like you really did feel a certain thing, like you felt a certain way about it. I don't know. It was an extra human.
Good God.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's
crazy to see though. Like even with Gettysburg, even the way like the main city is, like the main street set up. I don't know if you've been to when you did the tour, but it shows you at like how the city kind of waves. So that way they set it up that way, their main road. So that way when the infantry would move in, you would see them, and then it was kind of working with like trenches almost, the way the road was set up. And the road's still like that. It was crazy to see. Like the whole thing is basically, the whole town is like the perfect battleground. And like when your national park has a place called the Devil's Ridge, you know something happened.
Totally. If you ever come back this way and you're through Pennsylvania, you should stop at a place called Centralia. It's an abandoned city that's in that's in Pennsylvania, and it's had a coal fire underneath it since like the 1950s. Like the town has been on fire underneath for like 70 years or something crazy.
What?
Yeah. If you go ahead and you Google search it, there's documentaries out about Centralia and like the super wild rednecks who like decided to stay. Like all the nasty, like, carcinogenic fumes that are coming up from the ground. Like people are just living in it. And there's like 5 families that have like decided to homestead and like stake it out. Like we're not leaving. We're staying here in Centralia.
Is that the city that has no rules? Is that that one, or am I talking about a different one?
I mean, I couldn't say. They don't have a police. I don't know who polices Centralia. I'm sure the state police it or whatever. But like, I don't know anything about not being any rules. But in the early 90s, Dan Aykroyd was in a film called Nothing But Trouble. And Demi Moore was in it, and Chevy Chase was in it, and Tupac Shakur was in it too.
Jeez.
And that film was based in Centralia, Pennsylvania. Like,
no way.
The idea of it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you look it up on YouTube, there's a city. Sorry, Jer. There's a city. It's called the city without any laws. And if you look it up, it's these people that live like in trailers, and there's
it's in Arizona.
Oh, okay,
yeah, I think so. I think it's in like Arizona, Nevada. I think that kind of place like that, like a desert kind of area.
You could really disappear out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a ghost town though, right? Same idea. Ghost town, nothing there. Like people go there to vacation because they think it's very freeing and very liberating because there's no law enforcement. Law enforcement is like miles and miles away. There's some people that live there, some people that just go there to vacation. But I think that'd be really cool to just go and see a town that was deserted and like didn't get fixed up. They just kind of washed their hands and went, okay, we're done with this part of land.
We don't have like anything like that in Canada. We don't have any weird town that's been abandoned. I don't think.
There's another place in Pittsburgh in this little teeny town called Clairton, and Clairton has a mill that still runs. It still is like, when you go to Clairton, it feels like you're a chain smoker. Like it's just it's super polluted. But There's a whole neighborhood. This also is on YouTube. There's people that have gone and done little specials on this. A whole neighborhood, like a whole street's worth of families and houses. One day, everybody moves.
My God, sounds like Chernobyl.
They just move. Nobody knows where they went off to. That those houses are just. You can go into the houses and there's just like homework that kids left on the table. Like
also like
not
time
like
capsule
packed up our shit and left. Like fucking left. And like, yo, it's wild. Like there's some urban adventurer, like spy camera folks that go into the house and there's just like the refrigerator still had Lunchables in it. And like, the pantries were still filled with, KD. Like truthfully, it was wild.
Man, what a crazy. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, we have that guy who does the haunted tours. He sees a lot of that.
Yeah, he goes into the houses. His name has slipped my mind, and I apologize to him. But up in Canada, we just have like homes that get deserted, but not full towns. That'd be pretty rad, man. Like, so where you're from, like you grew up, you went there, high school, you went like school and stuff. Yeah. So I gotta get back to I gotta ask you this music question. So were you always into music when you were growing up? Like,
that is an interesting question. I wasn't allowed to listen to music on my own because my parents were super conservative.
Welcome to the club.
We went to like a super rigid church when I was a kid that didn't let us go to the movie theater or listen to the radio or it was super duper tight. I don't know what other word to use other than that. But, super bizarro stuff like rolling around on the floor and speaking in tongues and pushing people over and like super wildo beliefs.
Wow.
And like, we weren't allowed to go trick or treating and the whole bit. So,
yep.
I mean, I knew that there was, I knew that secular music existed because we were forbidden to have it. So like, you can't go ahead and say this is bad, not explain why it's bad and expect, children especially not to go ahead and like try and seek it out for themselves.
Yeah. Like, you know what? I'll stay away from that forever and ever. Amen.
Yeah. Right. I just like, it wasn't until I was of the age when kids started getting into music on their own, like in about 6th grade, where, I just had friends like my peers that I went to public school with that were listening to bands like The Offspring and Green Day and Nirvana.
Yeah.
And my parents gave me like a Walkman that I could listen to my Christian tapes in, like my Christian approved like alternative rock tapes. And
What were you listening to?
MXPX,
Yep.
and
Carmen.
DC Talk,
Yeah, buddy.
Yep. Oh yeah.
and the Newsboys,
Yep. Yep.
and things like contemporary Christian type music.
Yeah.
And I had a friend in sixth grade. His name's Jake, and he just handed me a bunch of tapes that I knew that there was this other world, like this punk rock world now that had existed. And I started to like, you know, I didn't want to believe that my friends who listened to the radio were all going to hell. And that's what I had been told for so long.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think Jake's a bad person. And he listens to this music and he's my friend and he accepts me and he likes my friendship. And, you know, I like the way that I feel when I listen to this music. And I like the conversations that I have when we talk about bands like Metallica and, you know, the big things that were on the radio at the time. And just like exploring it and finding it and the romance of like taking your allowance and buying a record, like the magic that comes along with that, especially from somebody who's very young and the memory that you get to make for that.
Absolutely.
And like, I was shunned from that. I wasn't allowed to have those experiences. So on my own, I did have a little clock radio that had a cassette tape recorder in it. And what I would do is I would stay up late nights and listen to like alternative radio stations, and I would make my own mixtapes of like whatever was on there. Jane's Addiction, Stone Temple Pilots, Sublime, Lisa Loeb, Garbage, Hole, like anything that was being played on the radio at the time, the Smashing Pumpkins, things like that. And
That's
I just
awesome.
I knew that it was alternative and I knew that it was forbidden. So it was good enough for me. And like, I listened to a whole bunch of stuff that I don't listen to now, but at the time, I thought that I discovered the band Sublime. If you would have asked me in private, hey, there's this band you've never heard of. They're the littlest thing ever. They're called Nirvana. You're never going to believe that I discovered this band on the radio late night on Sunday night on the edge of the alternative station. And, I honestly, I was out there and I was discovering it for myself. So my relationship with music and being able to celebrate it and my ability to enjoy it certainly has a very checkered past.
Man, you know how so many people we've talked to. So it's like my brother and I had the exact same experience growing up. Parents were super conservative. We went to like a private Baptist school, like same story, exact same story. Had to sneak the music. My first album I went and bought was a Bush X album at this store called was it Future Shop? Was that?
Not HMV. Future Shop.
It was Future Shop. And you could go there and like listen to the CD. And I remember riding around anyway, I've told the story already. But like so many people have had this story that are musicians that we've talked to that like they were just kind of like really just like repressed. And then they like you're saying, you kind of like out of that like unknown, like cool thing that you wanted to know about. You just had this cool relationship with music and it just was like beautiful and natural.
I knew that I with so much of the religious type of the talk comes a lot of being afraid, being afraid of things that you don't know and that you're not sure of, and being introduced to topics and situations and ideas, being introduced to fear. Here's the answer we have for you. And the alternative is Satan and death and hell and torture forever. So when given that choice as a very small child, it certainly does disrupt your decision-making and your cognitive decision-making process and being able to choose for yourself, what is it that I actually want? Am I making a decision that's based on the values that I actually hold? Or am I only making a decision based out of, if I choose the latter, then my punishment is hell eternally? That's a terrible balance for a 7-year-old to navigate, or an 11-year-old to navigate, or even for a fucking 40-year-old like myself to navigate, somebody who, who's much older. Like, imagine being told as a child that all of your decision-making process is being viewed through this very thin scope of like using fear as an apparatus to control you. And I know that it probably sounds harsh to say that, just to, for anybody who's ever gone to an evangelical conservative church, but in my experience, that's certainly what it was used for.
Yeah. And that's man, that's a hard road to run down. I feel like a lot of us, I'm going to say us, because I know there's a lot of people that went through something similar. You either take that and you turn it into something good, or sometimes you can take that kind of repression, you can kind of go down a road that's just rough. Like you're just like, I'm going 100% like down the other side. Like I know a bunch of people that were in that similar place, and then they unfortunately their lives just they were the opposite, because they're like, I want to see what's down that road. So man, yeah.
Well, fear and love are opposites. So I think whenever you make so many of those decisions that are based in fear, you're looking for a love that will fill you in a certain way. And the love that was promised that you should receive from your relationship with Jesus Christ never felt like love ever. It always felt like a parent who was looking to smack you for doing
whack you
wrong all the time.
Yeah.
And like it robs you of those very genuine opportunities.
Now, when you were at past the stage, you're kind of going into high school and stuff, did your parents, like, did the rules eventually lax a little bit for you, or did they stay pretty like the same?
The rules stayed the same, but they didn't have to change, because at that point, once I've been exposed to that for so very long, they didn't have to make. I was already afraid.
Okay.
So like, already was an obedient follower.
Yeah.
Like my parents. I mean, the church that I went to would take little kids, and they would go to the Planned Parenthood and picket with the big, huge, gross abortion signs, and they would stand out in front of them and holler insults at the people who were in to receive health services from Planned Parenthood. And I was a child who did that. Like I was one of the kids who were used in that way to be there. And that's not something that you just stop believing in,
Right.
Just because you're 15 now and you've listened to Green Day once or twice, that you're going to be some anarchist or whatever. I was still definitely afraid. I don't even believe now. I would consider myself to be roundly agnostic, or even an atheist, perhaps. But like in the back of my mind, I'm still afraid. I'm still definitely afraid of it. The what if? I mean, you can only watch so many movies about the rapture and the end times and the apocalypse, and people who get left out of God's protection. And even though I roundly believe that to be false, the fear mongering that was used on me as a young kid, like those claws are still pretty deep in there.
Yeah, man.
Which causes people like myself to run towards substance abuse and addiction, which I did, because you have to numb these terrible feelings that you fought your entire life. So I know a lot of kids that I grew up with and came up with through there followed a congruent path.
Yeah, man.
I was just lucky because I was in the deep search of finding something that was authentic and real and true. And I just so happened to find that in punk rock. I mean, at that point in time, it could have been anything for me. You know what I mean? If there was a charismatic person that was exciting enough that wanted me to get into being in a motorcycle gang, I probably would have done it. I'm just fortunate that they were like super progressive, leftist punk rockers that talked to me in a way that I understood and put me on a right path. And I had to unlearn a whole bunch of terrible things that I'd learned my entire life.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if the Hells Angels are riding anything that requires the sun. So
you might have been a short stint with the HA. Yeah.
I'm not tough enough for that. I can't be in a biking gang, and I can never go to jail because I'm a weakling and a coward. And no way that I'd make.
I got a beard and tattoos, so I would just kind of make it under the radar. Like,
Nah.
yeah, I'm
I'm
cool
covered
with
in
that.
tattoos, everything. I can grow a pretty okay beard, and I'm covered in tattoos and everywhere that you can't see. So I might be able to make it too, but I just
Yeah.
know that I'd get called out so quick. Like they're like, wait
Yeah,
a
you
second,
just-
you're not really
just-
that tough.
I pretend I'm a mute, can't talk.
Yeah, listen,
Just
I
speaking
just hold the
grunts.
mic and drink the beer.
My
That's
tongue
all.
was taken away when I was 14.
Totally.
How are you explaining this if you have no tongue?
So that kind of like that next progression to like meeting up with those punk leftists and like hanging out with those guys. What was that? How did that story start? And like, how did that kind of like, did that kind of start you obviously into the idea of getting into like being in a band?
Not right away. I knew, I mean, even like music and tattoos and smoking cigarettes, all that stuff was bad, and all that stuff was of the devil, and all that stuff would make you impure. And I just happened to, there was a fellow that I knew, his name was Justin, and he owned a tattoo shop, and he played in a Christian punk band. And he was like, hey, these are the things that I believe in. And I, never forced them on me or never like made me feel anything in any type of way to like manipulate me to join any type of a whatever. But I would go in there and I would get tattooed, and like we would just naturally bring up religion because obviously it was such a big, huge piece of my life. And it was a big, huge piece of, you know, his life as well. And I just met like these tattooed freaks that loved Motorhead and that listened to like street punk and had, big mohawks and the like. And they were very, I really needed a friend. I really needed to feel safe and to feel like everything else that I had known in my life up until this point has been this super weird, bizarro type of a cult that I was desperately looking to get away from. And I wanted to have a place where I belonged, and I wanted to have a place where I felt safe and that I knew I could make my own decisions and have my own free choice. And like, I found it there.
Wow. You found
Like,
it in punk.
they were super cool and like anarcho leftist Christian punk. I know it sounds crazy to mix all that up together, but it was that way in many ways. And just from being my friend and just from loving me and accepting me and learning that I was raised wrong. A lot of them had a lot of grace and a lot of patience for me. And, I learned a whole bunch, and it was very, transformative. I'm very
Wow.
grateful to it. It was a very transformative time in my life where I was very lost, and I was very in need to belong. And these and I did, and I found that, and it was like magical and beautiful and transformative all at the same time.
Now, did you have to hide your first couple tattoos?
No, at that point in time, I had already been on my
Okay.
way out.
Okay.
This was much later. I had already kind of left, and there was maybe like there might have been like a 2-year period from whenever I completely like abandoned that type of life, and then I met these punk rock folk.
Interesting. Ernie, your camera's out. Just I don't know what you're doing over
Yeah,
there.
it's all good. It's all good.
Picking a book.
Yeah, I don't know. He's hiding. He's like, I'm gonna cover it up so I can shove my finger up my nose.
I had to put my pants on.
Do you remember when like a single conversation that was like a flashbulb moment when you first met these guys that you were like, whoa, I never thought of this way, or this really changed my way of thinking? Obviously, growing up the way you did, was there a moment, do you remember, that you were just kind of like, okay, this is gonna kind of change some things for me?
In my house, and the thing that I have always heard my entire life is that Ronald Reagan was the greatest American president, and he was like God's mouthpiece, and he was God's ambassador, and that that God moved his hand in a miraculous way to shape the way that he wanted America to be, because America also happened to be, God's divine providence and yada, yada, yada. And I remember for the first time somebody just saying like, this is what Ronald Reagan did to stop the progress of human equality. And he's like, I don't care what you believe, if you're Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or Jewish or whatever. I just, any main religion or no religion at all, I just want to point out the facts. And they just went and they like this list. And I was like, if you think that this guy's a good guy, then you and I have a different opinion about what the word good means. And for the first time ever, things that I had been told my entire life and that I kind of accepted as, even though I didn't accept them as law, in the back of your mind, they still nag at you pretty heavy. It was the first time I'd ever known people to make a counter argument to something that I had been forced to believe my entire life, who I trusted to be good people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, we were always told about this, the world and the outside world and the world out there that is filled with sin and the world that is dark, and people who are of the world speak like they're of the world. And that type of imagery and that type of language was used all the time. So anybody who didn't believe in the same way that you believed in were of the world. And we had to make sure that we put a difference in between what we were doing and what people of the world were doing. So whenever I finally met people who were of the world, that loved Green Day and that painted their fingernails too, and that, was super into Pee Wee Herman, and that loved, all the weirdo shit that I love too, and were cool, and they liked me, and they were helping me learn about this new world that I was completely, that I was completely exposed to for the very first time. It was amazing.
Wow. Yeah. Now, when those started, like when those new thoughts started kind of permeating into your head, did you kind of keep quiet at home? Were you just kind of like, oh, I'm learning about this stuff, but I'm not going to say too much until I like what was that journey like with the new knowledge and kind of ideas at home with your parents?
My time at being my relationship with my dad was very strained. And my desire to want to be at home was not there.
Right.
So I spent a long piece of time not spending much time at home at all. I was couch surfing. I was living on my friend's floor. I was living on my friend's couch in his apartment for a while. And it wasn't until and I did that for quite some time. Like I did that for a number of years.
Now, did that time in your life have any influence on the name of your band, the Homeless Gospel Choir?
No, that's just a lucky name. We just happened to hit a home run the first time we stepped up to the plate with a super clever name that everybody loves. So it has nothing to do with any of that contextually.
Because your life kind of like played that out a little bit there.
What's that?
Your life kind of played that out. Like that was kind of like how it went for a while. Sounds like you were a homeless guy, young guy, just trying to live in with these new thoughts. Like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
All right, maybe I was reaching.
And the Black Eyed Peas name was already taken.
You totally have the right. You totally have. You have my blessing if you want to make a puppet show up about it, and you want to write your own soundtrack on kazoos and maybe use a little hand clappers, and you can play it on ukulele and get a kazoo. I'll actually pay a ticket price to come and watch it.
Okay.
I'd be stoked to see that. I'd be stoked to see that puppet show.
Okay, I'm making a script, and you're gonna be the co-signer. We'll make some money. I'm gonna put this on the road. We're gonna make this happen.
I'll do the voiceovers. I mean, I won't charge you much for that.
Okay. Well, we'll make a plan here. We got something going on. Sounds like we got
80-20. I'll cut it right down the middle, just square down the middle, 80-20, and we'll just do a spit shake on it.
Yeah, a gentleman's handshake. Anyway.
A gentleman's accord.
Oh my gosh. So it's safe to say you've had a pretty interesting journey up to that point. So were you playing musical instruments at the time? Were you playing guitar? Were you playing anything else? Were you singing? Like,
no, I had some friends who were doing it, and I liked the idea of being in a band, but I didn't have any aspirations. I didn't know what my aspirations could possibly be. I didn't know where I would be able to fit into the punk rock world. I knew that I liked it, and I knew that I liked to be involved in it, but I didn't know what my role was necessarily. But on Monday nights, there would be like these open mic nights, and we would go, and I would, but mostly in the very beginning, I would just go there and play like Woody Guthrie songs or Hank Williams songs or Johnny Cash songs or something
Yeah.
like that. 3 chords that's easy to play that you can play in your sleep.
Yeah.
And I was just going around and doing it. And then one day I wanted to just see if I could play it faster. And I was like, how can I play this song like twice as fast, like Alvin and the Chipmunks kind of? And I kind of just mixed like just taught myself how to figure out how to play a couple chords and how to just go out and write some songs. And I just wanted to go ahead and try it. So my friend Jim Walker gave me a broken Ovation guitar. The face was broken and the back was also broken, and it
Wow.
didn't stay in tune very good, but it stayed in tune enough for me to know what I was doing. And I went ahead to that open mic night and I would play my songs, and people knew me from just playing like, covers or
Oh, cool.
whatnot. And I would say, hey, this is an original that I wrote. And they were like, oh, wow, that song's pretty nice. And I would say, thanks. And then I would come back the next week and I would play some other songs and like, hey, we really like your songs. And I would say, cool. And then I was asked to do like, some opening up for, I was asked to do some opening gigs
Yeah.
for, some other local bands at small DIY shows. And the kids at those shows happen to like my songs pretty good. And then I just got asked to do more and more of those type of shows. And then I had some friends from out of town who were like, hey, we don't have a lot of money to pay you, but if you come to Cleveland and you play a show, we'll give you a place to stay and give you $100. And I said, okay,
Sweet.
sounds good. I'll do it. And then I just started to do it more and more. And I liked doing it. And I found out that it was possible for me to do that the same, it would be the same if I stayed at home and I worked. So I just was
Yeah.
out on tour all the time. Starting in about 2009, I just hit the road, and I've been at it full time. I mean, I've had bartending jobs and I worked at a pizza shop too, but for the most part, this has been my full time gig since then.
Wow. Really?
Oh, that's awesome.
That's pretty rad. And then did you feel like you were taking a risk in 2009, or you're just like, no, this is what's up. I'm just doing this.
I didn't know. I wasn't happy with my life. I think I didn't know what was possible for me and the trajectory of what I would like to accomplish in my life. And I thought that I would at least be able to discover myself how had I, jumped out there and started to play these shows. And I did. And as I began to grow and learn and find out new things on my own, I began to develop new and better opinions of the world. And yeah.
Man. So was it just North America kind of touring since like 2009, or where have you been?
I've been to North America most. I've been up to Canada. I've probably played Canada, I would say, a good dozen times. I've crossed the border. And I do want to say just one real quick thing to all the Canadian border guards that happen to be listening to this podcast. You guys fucking suck. You're the worst. You're the worst of all time. You should quit your jobs and just get a job working at Dairy Queen or literally anywhere else, because y'all are rude and you make everybody's life miserable. So you can it.
Do you have like a good story you could tell us about crossing over the border?
Every time I've ever crossed the Canadian border, they rip you out of the van and they want to ask you a million questions. How much you selling this t-shirt for? How much you going to sell this t-shirt for? How many days are you in town for? Where exactly are you going to stay? How do you know about the people up here in Canada? How did you meet? How often? And they just want to know everything about it. I came a couple times. My friend Evan got in trouble in high school for graffitiing.
Oh God.
And he got caught at the border, and they're like, they held us up and they held us up and they held us up. And we were there maybe 2 hours all told. And then they were like, if you just pay the fine for $310, we'll let you in. And it was just a thing to extort money from you. Like, it was just if you just would have told us at the first minute, hey, you can sit here for 2 hours and we're going to ask you for $310. Or listen, we know that we're going to nab you with this $310. Can you just pay it now and we'll let you go? I would have much rather just known, like, we're going to get this money out of you. But they make you wait there until it's like, okay, you can wait here or go back. You've already invested 2 hours.
Yeah.
Now that they said $310, you're like, whatever it is, I'll pay
Let me
it to
across.
get this room.
But
I got one time I was coming up there to play Canadian Music Week in Toronto, and I was on the same bill as Janet Jackson and Papa Roach. and
Wow.
we were there to play these big, huge. We were playing in the basement in a place called Parts and Labor.
Yep, I know Parts and
And
Labor.
it was really fun. It was a great gig. But on our way into Canada, we didn't print out our visa papers, that they were just on a thumb drive. And we figured that we live in an advanced enough culture that you can just hand the border security a thumb drive and they'll be able to pull up all of your things. Nope. So we went ahead and they sent us back to the US. So we went back to the US to go to the FedEx Kinko's. We arrived at the FedEx Kinko's in Buffalo at 9:05, 5 minutes after they closed. So we had to go to a hotel, get a room for the night, and then go to that FedEx Kinko's first thing in the morning so that we could print out our papers and get across the border. And we're like,
man.
there's another border crossing about 30 miles up. Why don't we just drive up there and try and give them the thumb drive? We have all the information. They'll be cool about it, right? Wrong.
Oh no.
There's a federal offense. You can go to federal prison for, it's called port
Re-entry.
PORTSHOPPING, port shopping. If you get denied from a port and you try an entry through a secondary port
Oh no.
in
Oh,
8
no.
hours, it's a federal crime called port shopping. And we're like, hey, what's up? We're American. We have our visa papers. They're on this thumb drive. You just have to let us in, yada, yada, yada. They were like, we heard about you. You're not allowed to do this. You're in big trouble. So we were in big. They just sent us back to Buffalo. I was like, we have the information here. If you just put it in the computer, I see that you have an input. It'll come right up. You just click on it. It'll have our pictures and our everything that you need. And they're like, nope, unfortunately, shit don't fly like that. So they packed us up and we had to go back to Buffalo. We get back to the hotel. We had to buy a room in the hotel, and it's midnight, right? We're exhausted.
Man.
Nothing's open to eat. We haven't eaten for hours and hours and hours. And the only thing open is this hotel bar lobby. We go to the hotel bar lobby. It's right before they're about to close. They're literally, the guy's pulling the mop out to mop out the back floor. And we're like the assholes who are going to order food right before the kitchen closes. We ordered these buffalo cheeseburgers.
All right.
So, hey, 3 buffalo cheeseburgers, 3 orders of fries, 3 beers, and we sat down and we're eating them. And we're eating it and eating it, and we're starving. I don't even taste it. I dunk the whole thing in ketchup, swallow it, drink my beer, and I'm going to bed. I'm exhausted. We're out money for a hotel. We're not in Canada. We have a show the next day. Big, huge headache.
Man.
Well, the next morning we wake up. We go to the FedEx Kinko's, we print out our things, we go to the border crossing. They remember us from the night before because it was only a few hours after they kicked us out. So like the same night shift that was there the night before, we're there that next morning. Jeez. So we go ahead and we give them the papers, and they're like, oh, it's y'all from last night. And we're like, yep, it's us from last night. Give them the papers. These human beings didn't even look at the papers. They're like, oh, that's it. Handed them right back to us. Like, within 1 second, the papers could have been empty. Like they could have been absolutely blank. The guy didn't even look at it. Like just like, okay, you went through all the effort to do it. We trust you. Go ahead on through the thing.
Good gravy.
We go ahead and we get through the border crossing. And what happens is we all get food poisoning from those buffalo cheeseburgers that we had the night before.
Oh, no.
It's the first 3 shows of tour in Hamilton, in Kitchener, and in Waterloo.
Yep. My God, dude. My God.
So that's just one of my Canadian stories. I have a whole bunch of them. But yeah, I've been every time we go across the Canadian border in a van, I've been pinched every single time.
Shoot. That sucks.
That's a super long story.
No, we love super long stories.
Okay. That's also why I hate police. But other than that, I think
it's funny because like I was actually supposed to see you in a show because we're from Cambridge, which is just right beside Kitchener and Waterloo. Like we're literally like 10 minutes away. And I think you were on tour with Listener at the time. And I think you were opening, and I actually was at that time. I'm pretty sure I might be wrong because I was going to a Bible college that was just up the road from I think where you were Cambridge. It was called Heritage Bible College. I don't know if you know about that. Yeah, maybe not. Anyway, it was something to do with that. I heard about it. You were around that area, but I just I didn't make it. But I think that was one of those shows that you were sick, so I don't know how well it went, but
yeah, and maybe it was London. Maybe we're supposed to play in London and Hamilton and Kitchener. I don't remember, but yeah. I remember because it was the first time I was ever on a big poster. It was the first time I was ever on a big flyer with,
that's cool.
Janet Jackson and Papa Roach. Come on, that's a big time deal.
Yeah, buddy. Man, that's a heck of a story. So
was that pre-boob flash or post-boob flash?
When was Boob Flash? What year was it?
Super Bowl.
That was Super Bowl.
No, man, that was not 2009.
If I was a football fan, I'd be lying. Hang on, I got to Google.
This is after. Because if you started in 2009, I think I had a girlfriend in 2006, and it was not the same year. So this was post.
Okay.
Yeah, post. I don't know why you needed to know that, Dirty.
I'm just
curious.
Some other bands too.
Yeah.
I just looked up in Google Super Bowl Janet Jackson Boob Flash was February 1st, 2004.
Yeah, it was not. He's safe. He's safe.
Made it.
You're safe on this one.
Totally.
Good God. So you literally you've been just like running and gunning like for like was it like the last like obviously like over 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
So with all that work put out, like what obviously you've had highlights with like tours and stuff, but like what's been like the highlight for you with putting out the music, and like what has that been like with you? Because like you said, you kind of like this is like kind of all been new and starting for you new, so you kind of had to like, do you feel like you've kind of had to figure out as you kind of started, or like?
Well, I just like to for me, I just like to set small, reasonable goals. And my very first small, reasonable goal was I'd like to go ahead and press some of my songs to a demo record on vinyl. And I made a small run of 250 copies of my very first demo songs ever. And my friend's record label put them out. And then I wanted to go ahead into it. After that, I made a goal of going into a studio and recording my first real studio album. And I did that. And then I would just, I set a goal of I wanted to play, 100 shows this year. How do I reach my goal of playing 100 shows in a year? And then I would just set other goals too. Like I want to get signed to a record label. And I you figure out, there were some record labels that that wanted to put out your record. And I was lucky enough to meet the guys from Anti-Flag, and they have a record label, and they liked my songs pretty good, and they wanted to produce and put out my albums. So I did that, and those opportunities, more people heard my songs then. And, other fancy motherfuckers thought that it was pretty cool, and they wanted to go ahead and take me out on tour. And then I got a chance to go ahead and do some really big fancy tours. I was up there with your Canadian boys, the Arkells. Do you know about that band?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I toured with the Arkells over in Europe, over in the UK. Max, Kerman, and Mike, and the rest of those dingleberries. They're great boys. They're fun to tour with.
Cool. So
when you do
goals and just trying to go for it, and I still have goals in my heart now. My goals are bigger now than ever. Big things that I want to accomplish and do, and new tours that I want to try, and new records that I want to make, and trying to be adventurous and brave with songwriting so that it's not boring and dull and a pain in the ass to try and put a record together with songs that you hate. So yeah, I don't know. I'm having a really fun time doing it.
When you do touring, what is your preferred method of travel?
That's such a good question. Every method of travel involves wheels. So I usually, I've never gone without a wheeled vehicle. So a vehicle, vehicles. When I first started out, I was just touring in my Dodge Stratus, and then whenever I moved into being on a tour in a van with Listener, it was like I was really living high on the hog, and I had my own bench seat. And then sometimes some of those real fancy tours, like when you go on tour with Anti-Flag or you go on tour with Frank Turner, they put you in a bus and you get a whole bunk to yourself, and you get a whole shelf in a refrigerator to yourself, and that's real fancy living too. And then we're to a point now where we do our, we have our own European tour set up, and we're going to have our own little refrigerator and our own little bunks of our own, and we're going to go over there as a 5-piece band and do that. So I like all types of that. I've only had to fly into a couple shows, and I mean, you have to fly to Europe. You can't take a boat over there. You can, but it would just take forever. But yeah, I'm usually in a van. We have a 2006 Ford E250 that has bench seats in the back, and we load all the gear there, and we just knock around in that.
So when you fly out to Europe and then you do your touring, would you go there with your own gear, or would you go to Europe and rent it and then tour it with the rented gear?
You rent gear over there because it's cheaper to rent it than it is to fly cabs and heads and all that type of stuff. And there are people over there that also are just in bands that are like, hey, you can use our gear whenever you're here. If whenever we come over and we do our tour, you let us borrow some gear too. So punk rock is super cool in the way that everybody knows everybody and wants to help you out.
Awesome.
And, you have to rent a van. I mean, I don't want to drive over there in Europe or in the UK. So like you have to pay a driver and you have to rent a van and rent gear. So there's costs that are involved in it. But if you have fun inside your heart, there's no price you can put on that. Am I right or am I right?
Right.
No, you're right. Yeah.
No, I was just curious, like for people that are they're so attuned to their own instrument. Like when you go across to something rented, if like you almost feel like you're losing on your sound, you know what I mean? Because you're so used to the sound of your own guitar. But
punk rock band, so we just turn the distortion all the way up, and once you find out where the hook of the song is, you're either gonna sing along or you ain't gonna sing along. So just I think we have to give credit to the people who like our music to be a little bit smart and to figure it out, and they do, which is good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've always wondered that if the gear went with you or what.
To have like all your own stuff over there.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe one day we'll get to be a big, huge, famous, rich band where we have a whole set of, gear over in Europe that we can just plug into whenever we arrive. But for now, we're putting it on the plane, baby.
Nice, man. I gotta ask this. So I know that when going around, like you were saying, when you were first starting off playing like Johnny Cash songs and just like easy, simple chord songs, and it seems to me, just like having this conversation with you and like a little bit of conversations we had even before we chatted, like your lifestyle is pretty positive. You seem like you're just enjoying what's up and you're having fun. And you seem humble in that, and you also seem very well spoken in the way you write lyrics, and they're very beautiful, and like it really just like it speaks to you on a different level. You know what I mean? I'm just saying your music is really, really good. But I gotta ask, so was there a moment in all of this kind of like in the happenings in the last year? And I know you seem like a humble guy, so like was there a moment that you were just like, you know what, like you kind of like took a step back after like singing like a song or after a show, you were just like, you kind of were just like, okay, I think I made it. Like, I think this is what's up. Like, or have you always just kept the train going? Like, what's you been thinking like that?
I am guilty of not really being able to appreciate my accomplishments or any success that I've had because I am so forward visioned and aggressive in my ambition. So
That's the vibe I got.
I there are even times where I'll play my last song and I'll just unplug my guitar and run off stage and say thanks, and like not even be there to have that moment where people are like clapping for you, because it makes me also feel kind of strange and weird sometimes. But like, yeah, I mean, I have to realize that, there's a large and growing group of very faithful supporters of the music and the art that I make that I'm very thankful and grateful to. That like I'm the luckiest person in the whole wide world that I get to have a job of making punk rock songs. Get out of here. That's the best job I've ever even heard of in my life. And I'm super duper lucky, and I'm super thankful to the people who fuck with me that like put me on so that I get to do this shit. Like, I honestly, it's the most humbling thing I could ever imagine. And like, I just want that for my friends too. Like, I think if we just continue to do it and, and continue to be a band that hopefully, as I bring my friends into it, we'll be able to all make punk rock our job, and
Yeah.
all be able to share in that together. At least that's the goal.
Yeah, man.
I want to know, like, when you do performing, like when you first started, like I know as a, like, I DJ weddings and things like that. So when you play a song that, like, either the bride loves, and then you get the whole crowd, and you play it, and the whole crowd's like, oh, and they all stand up and start dancing. Like, you kind of hit one out of the park in that. I want to know for you, when you first started doing shows and people started recognizing and singing along for your music, like, when did that happen, and what did that ignite in you?
Thanks for asking. I don't know if I think sometimes my anxiety or maybe my nervousness robs me of my ability to even know that that's happening, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
I think, like, I'm so overly worried that you're going to love me, and I want you to love me so much. And it's all I can think of or care about, that, like, I don't even notice that you're singing along. I don't know. I think yeah. I wish I had a better answer for you, but
Okay.
like, there were times, especially at, like, in 2014, whenever I put out I Used to Be So Young, like my first record on a record label, that I would go to shows and there would even be, like, 20 or 30 kids there that all knew all the words and it sang all the words back to you. And that certainly was, like, it still is now, like, a very magical thing. Now, I haven't played a live show in almost 2 years because of the damn, worldwide health crisis. But
the flu. Yeah, the flu.
yeah.
Andy.
It still has it's still a magical thing whenever you go into a room with a bunch of strangers, and that a lyric or something that you wrote down in your bedroom when you were by yourself has the power to
Move
do that.
someone.
Do you know what your first headline show was when you were the main headline and you had shows ahead of you?
No. I also had a time in my life where I was drinking a bunch, and some of those memories are super bad, like super blurred for me.
Man.
Which sucks.
Because I was going to say, like, even knowing that somebody paid to come and see your show would have been even better than somebody kind of knowing all the words to your song. You know what I mean? Like, people have paid money to come and hear you sing. Would have been a little bit of self, Jesus, I can kind of pat myself on the back a little bit for that one, right?
Totally.
Totally. You're a humble guy. That's what's coming out. So where do you get? So I gotta say that you're a good writer. Like, you're a really good writer. Like, your songs are just amazing. So take that. You don't have to acknowledge it. I know you're hard. Maybe you don't like compliments, but yeah, I love your writing. And so for me, when I was listening to your lyrics, like, literally, I think it was about maybe like 4 weeks ago, I was at work and I was driving. I drive this big giant van for work and drive people around sometimes. And I was like blaring your music, and everybody was vibing to it. And I was just like, man, I love this. I'm loving this music so much. And like, your lyrics just kind of come out. And then I'm like, this guy's a writer. This guy can write. So I always like ask people who are like lyricists and like write their own music, is like, where do you get like your inspiration? And were you always like, did you shock yourself with the way that you can write? Or
I thank you for asking that question and for saying it too. I don't know. It's I don't know how it works for anybody else. I wish I could experience. I've watched like a lot of like Song Exploder podcasts to try and get into the mind of like how other people write songs too, and I just don't know. I feel like in my mind it's my mind in the most parts probably feels like a desert, and a desert that gets a lightning storm maybe 5 or 6 times a year. So most of the time I sit there and I'm just waiting for this lightning storm to happen. But when the lightning storm does happen, it's so serious and it's so severe and it lasts for enough period of time that I'm able to catch all those ideas and work on them during the time when I'm just in the desert. If that makes any sense to you at all. So I know that I'm supposed to be in the practice of sitting there and waiting, and that's how art works. If you show up to make art, then you'll make art. If you just say, I'll wait till I get inspired, you might never make art. But know for myself that it works in like a lightning bolt of inspiration that happens for a short period of time, 3 days, 6 days, 10 days, where it's like very intense, and I can hear all the melody,
Wow.
and I can hear all the words, and I can put a bunch of ideas together, and then I'll probably go 3 or 4 months and I won't hear anything, and it'll just be like, even the things that I go to make all sound and feel like absolute ice cold dog shit.
When you hear that one song though, can you, like you said, all of a sudden you won't hear anything for a while? Will you be focused on that one song until it's done, or will you
Nope.
get an inspiration for one, and then as soon as that's out of your head, you're focused on another one, and the song doesn't even have to be written yet?
I have a really great support of the other people in the band. So when I have little ideas and I have little rabbit parts, or I have the beginning of a song, or maybe even to what I would assert to be a fully fleshed out song, I would send it over to Matt, who plays guitar and helps write songs too, and or Maura and Megan or Craig, or just send it to folks in the band, and like we would start to craft it into what does it feel like to be a full live rock band song. There's little parts that I put into just send to the group chat. Hey, I have a little hook. What do y'all think about it? Type of a thing. And it's better for me because sometimes I'll get a response to say, yo, that's whack, and no one's ever going to like that part. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I won't waste my time. Or it's like, yo, that's really good. Let's lean into that together. And how can we really help you shine that up the best way that we can? So
Will you?
I'm really fortunate that I have like, and I don't call them just the band. I have the best band ever, period. And they're the best at their instruments, and they're the best at coming up with parts. And I also feel like I hit the motherfucking lottery with them too.
That's awesome, man.
So you'll focus on just finalizing one track at a time, or can you have like a bunch on the go?
Yeah, once I get the idea in my mind, like I'll polish it up later. But once my mind is going in creative mode, I want to at least start or massage as many of these different ideas that I can be inspired to do.
Wow.
And then like in my time when it's dead, I can always pick up the part and be like, oh, this is the melody that I have to work around. You know, I'll send it off to Matt now, or whatever. I'll figure it out.
So do you listen to a lot of different types of music to kind of like maybe inspire you or find those flashes of lightning in the desert, or do you read a lot? Like what type of like outlet do you do in the desert, like that, those kinds of times? Like what do you intake? Like what inspires you?
Like listen to podcasts with two guys that talk about bear attacks and
yeah, no, I have a pretty intense album collection and cassette tape collection.
Yeah, like you were saying that before. Yeah.
So I'm always listening to music up here, and I'm always writing. I have about 3 or 4 writing projects that I'm working on right now, whether it's of 2 different books that I'm working on writing. I'm working on a musical right now, and I'm also working
and a puppet show. Yep.
Hey, well, that's my idea.
Hold on. This is a musical.
Yeah.
I'm working on, that's, if you can see behind me, all the papers that are on the wall.
Oh.
I'm working out all the scenes of a musical right now.
Man,
no way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I also realized that whenever I'm not busy, that's whenever sadness comes into my heart the hardest. So if I have a good schedule and I keep myself busy and I have things to look forward to, like doing podcasts, like taking little trips, and usually, under normal circumstances, I'm on tour 80 to 120 days out of the year. So I have plenty of things to keep me busy. But these last 2 years specifically, I've had to be pretty strict with myself about like setting up lists and duties, and when else am I going to go ahead and make a weirdo record about living in a house as a ghost of your past self? When else am I going to do it? So you got to do it. If the creative bug is in you now, you got to do it now. Now's the time.
So is that when the musical was created, and when you started that was during the pandemic? Is that when you started that?
This is the musical now. It's only been a couple of weeks.
Okay.
That's awesome.
I'm just storyboarding right now, coming up with different characters and I know how it starts and I know how it ends. And those are the two most important parts of a musical. Now I just got to go ahead and put all the guts in the middle so to make it interesting to make you watch it.
So what are we thinking? Main character, like what are we looking at? Brad Pitt or Johnny Depp? What are we looking at?
No, the main character is Brad Pitt's too flashy. He's a humble servant of the people. Yeah, you're gonna have to. I'm not gonna give you any spoilers. You're gonna have to.
Don't.
Okay. Well, if you're looking for any overweight, tattoo guys that can't sing,
yeah.
But,
Listen,
talk about me. I'm not talking about you.
In the pool of our socialist dreams, there's space for everybody. So, tattooed, chubby, bearded men, you're welcome.
I can hold a mic, hold a light stand, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Hold a coffee.
Yeah, I'm good at running for coffee. That's for sure.
Yep.
Oh my God.
There's a ticket first, Joe. So I'm your man.
There's a place for everybody at the table. Nobody is rejected or sent away. At the table of punk rock, where the communion elements are available for everyone to partake in.
Costume design,
So, is there any shows upcoming for you in the future, or is everything just still up in the air in regards to like booking?
We have plenty of shit scheduled. We have a European tour scheduled for June and July. We have some shows. If they have Pooza Fest in Montreal this year in May, we certainly plan on coming up. We're on the bill for that as soon as they announce it. And we have a tour leading up to that. And then we have all summer and all fall too. So we're just waiting to announce some things. We have some pretty exciting plans up our sleeves. Just playing the waiting game.
We don't have anything till May right now, though. You said.
Yeah, we're not there. I don't know if I would feel stoked about going out there right now to try and play gigs. It seems like it's a dang death wish. Bands are getting COVID and getting sent home. One thing about going, doing it locally is, if we go to play Cincinnati and someone gets sick, you drive a couple hours and you're home. If you're in Europe and somebody gets sick, everybody's got to quarantine in a different hotel, and then you have to fly home, and that's not cheap. So you gotta, you gotta be careful. Got to pick your battles.
I feel like things are kind of slowing down now. I think like maybe up here in Canada, we're starting to kind of like maybe the end is in sight kind of idea, just with everything. But I don't know what it's like in the States right now for you guys. I don't want to get into COVID, but
terrible. It's ratcheted to the highest that it's ever ratcheted. It's terrible here right now. Shit. And you're our neighbors, so if you let us in, you're gonna get it too.
I think we're closing the door real soon there, pal.
You know what?
Anyway, you're not getting across the border.
I wouldn't let us in.
You're not getting across the border the best of times. Anyway.
Nope. This is making it more and more difficult.
You're stuck in the border with your USB.
Hate it.
Buddy. So you got that going on. You got some stuff maybe happening in May, but for you personally, like what does your day-to-day life right now look like? Is it writing, just hanging out? Like, are you do you have a part-time job at a bar you were saying, like, or what do you got going on?
No, I'm working on the musical. I'm working on writing that, and we made a full new a full length record during COVID-19. Once everybody got vaccinated, we got together and we wrote and recorded a brand new album that comes out this year. We had new songs that came out on January the 1st on a split record with Teenage Halloween on Don Giovanni Records, and we're just gonna keep the ball rolling.
Awesome.
I'm full-time working at home.
That's great. Do you like? Are you enjoying it, or you like to be on the road?
I'm learning to like to be at home. I mean, if you work hard at being content, you can be content anywhere. So I'm just learning to be content, and this isn't the end of my life, but this is a place where my life is now. So I can be miserable and just be a piss pants about it for 2 years, or I can be like, well, how can I turn this absolutely dire shitstorm of a situation around and make it the best that I can? And that's what I'm trying to do. I have a regular schedule. I keep a routine. Lindsay and I try and get away for the weekend, go take little trips, take the dog to the dog park, all that kind of stuff.
Nice. Well, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for hanging out with us and agreeing to even come on and hang out with us.
Thanks for having me. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, I've always heard about your band and heard your band and heard about you. And then I was asked a couple of people saying, he'd be a really cool guest. Come on. I'm like, okay, I got to ask and see if you would. And you said yes. So I really appreciate it. And we really appreciated your time, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad. I'm glad you are enjoying a hobby such as being podcast hosts. It's a wonderful way to pass the time and connect with people that you don't know. So I hope that you live to be 150 years old and that you get to do this every day of your life if that's what you want.
Yeah, man, we've been doing this for like 3 to 17 years now. So
that's great.
Yeah. Between that number, we're not sure what it is. Jeremy says 3. I say 3. Jeremy says 17. We're somewhere in the middle.
I don't know, man.
17 years ago, you would have been at the ground floor of podcasting.
Yep. We started it all.
Like 10 years ago.
We were doing this in cans.
You might have to fist fight Joe Rogan for podcast king.
We got him. I got his number.
I don't think so. I think you're gonna lose that battle real quick. He's gonna kick you.
I'll tell you one thing about Joe Rogan is his head is so big. You're gonna have to eventually connect with one of those punches.
Well, I'm not gonna miss.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never seen somebody with a melon so large.
Really? You met him?
No, but you see him on TV, and I mean, you can definitely tell when he's sitting there ringside that his head is disproportionately large.
Yeah, but you know what though? When he holds that mic, you're like, I would never want to make this gorilla angry.
Man, he's gonna.
Yeah, I think he reminds me. Yeah, I don't listen. Yeah, totally. I think he sucks.
He's gonna kick you all the way to Kansas for sure, though.
Yeah,
that kicks. Yeah. He's gonna. You're gonna be. You're gonna fold you in half.
He's in Houston.
An anti-vaxxer. I'll just cough on him, and he'll.
Oh, he's full of horse piss. Remember?
No. Yeah, that. Yeah, ivermectin.
He has a lot of people that watch him on that damn podcast, and I mean,
a couple.
You would think he'd say something valuable or good. It's just a bunch of like libertarian wanking off. It sucks.
Yeah. All right. I feel that vibe, man. I feel your vibe.
Hey, dude, you guys have a great night. Thanks for chatting to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank
man.
you
we
so
really
much.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. You take it easy.
Touch, y'all.
We'll take it easy.
Yeah.
All right. Bye now.
Your audio, Jeremy?
Oh, you just cut out. Your audio cut out.
Okay. Are you there still?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Your audio coming out of that mic to us now is perfect.
I'm exporting this as an MP3, right?
Yes. And then it's going to ask you to name it. I think we're at 88, I think.
Yeah, we're at 88.
So save it as EP88. And then so when it asks you MP3, just delete the whole thing, type in EP88. And then when it brings up the title and artist thing, just put in the title thing, delete what's in there, and just put EP88. You'll see, like when it asks you to name it, it's gonna save.
Right, yeah,
and
I got
pops it up.
Yep.
Title, put EP88.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've done that, but I was just a little bit. Everything recorded fine. Hang on, we'll stop this recording. Anyone who watched this, welcome.